Welcome to another video from the Ball Basket Living History group. Sorry it's took so long to get another video out. It's been quite mad with building Jeeps and other things like the Great Tommy Sleep Out. We've just done the Great Tommy Sleep Out and raised I think just over £200. I was going to do a video on that, but the weather was atrocious, so we hid out under the bridge at the Helston Railway where we were camping and spent the whole night huddled under this small bridge with the fire and trying to stay dry. So I'll try and put some pictures in now, but you didn't really miss a whole lot, but it was good to get the kit out and raise some money for the Royal British Legion. In this video we're going to go through the basic equipment if you wanted to portray a trooper during, say, first SAS or 2 SAS missions in France for around D-Day. So this will cover sort of June, July and into August a little bit of SAS. It will be based on Ball Basket, which was first SAS down at Verrier and the Vienne itself. So it will be heavily based on that, but there's a lot of crossover with other missions of the same time. And I'm going to go through the basic kit you'd need, how to sort of wear it, and the common myths and bits of equipment that are absolutely overdone in SAS reenactment use, and I'll explain why they're overdone. So let's start. The maroon beret. If you're a trooper going into the missions around D-Day, summer of 1944, you'll be wearing the maroon beret. There are exceptions, and there are people who wear the more iconic sand beret, but from late 1943 and certainly for all missions in 44, the SAS come under Allied Airborne Command, and Boyd Browning, head of the British Airborne, had felt he'd bestowed an honour upon the SAS and allowed them to wear the maroon beret of airborne forces. The SAS mostly saw this as an insult, and you'll see many pictures of Paddy Mayne, who refused to wear the maroon and always wore the sand, and he wasn't alone. For instance, on Ball Basket you'll see quite often Lieutenant Weaver. He always wears his sand. He reportedly landed, and the first thing he did after he'd got his parachute off was pull the sand beret out from under his smock and proudly put it on his head. And he wasn't the only one. There were others on this mission and others you will see wearing the sand, but if you're going to reenact it, certainly if you're starting out, I'd always recommend the maroon, as it's what was standard at the time and it's what you will see most commonly worn. We do have a member who wears the sand because he bases his impression as off Lieutenant Weaver. Stick with the maroon. Everybody seems to like to wear a scarf, and that's fine. The most common you'll see is the airborne type plate of war smock, the plate of war scarf, sorry, with the green with brown camo on it. You see these a lot on reenactors. You don't see them very often in photos. In fact, I think I may have one original photo of one of these in SAS use. So you do see private purchase or acquired scarves. You see these quite often. You can clearly see that when someone's wearing it, it is not an issue scarf, it's just something they found civilian. The other thing you'll also see is parachute silk or nylon. This is an American type parachute, but you will see these worn as scarves, and we know that for the SAS missions down in the Vienne is that the silk was being used by locals to make clothes. There was even some civilians in at least one of the camps who were making shirts out of these parachutes, which would be given to the SAS, but they would also be sold. Quite dangerous if you were caught with a nice silk blouse or silk shirt or silk underwear. There's only one place it was coming from if you're in central France and you've got silk. Next is the shirt. So you can have the Airtex. This one's a little bit more like khaki drill, but khaki drill or Airtex shirts, you'll see these, that they are by far the most common shirts you'll see, mainly because the SAS aren't going to go out in their itchy shirts if they can acquire something much more comfortable, which these are, and a lot of them will have served in Africa or in Italy, where they'll have had the khaki shirts as well. As you can see, this one's nice, and this is a nice new one, and Airtex is fantastic because once you've worn it a bit, it gets like this original, which is worn and horrible and looks rough, and it's fantastic. After that, it's the battle dress. 40 pattern is the most common you'll see in the pictures for the missions in France. You can use 37 pattern, I mean it would have still been around if you're going by the pictures. 40 pattern. It is always the most common in pictures. For the little details, if you're going to do insignia, not all of them wore insignia. I'd recommend putting the wings on the right arm. Most you'll see in France were of the new intake. Certainly ball basket. There was very few that had actually served with the SAS before ball basket. They'd have had their sleeves on their arm, denoting that you've qualified as a parachutist, but you wouldn't move them onto your chest until you'd done combat jumps, as far as I can tell. 40 pattern battle dress, first SAS flash on the top, and then your wings on top, below on your right arm. Another little touch you can do is we've put different buttons on. There's a report from the French translator that stayed with Tonkin for ball basket, saying that he was fascinated by the large round buttons on his breast pockets. So from what we can tell, is they were the reason he was fascinated with them is because they were compasses, and the most common I can see of the British type escape compass that was a button and was large and round are these type, and they would have 2 dots on one side and one on the other for north and south. You'd hang them by the little hook and they would be your compass. I think it was Charles Fraser Smith Q for, you know, like for instance James Bond was sort of based off him. He went around making escape and evasion kits and all sorts of things, and he became fascinated with compasses that you could turn almost anything into a compass, and he really did have a good go at turning anything into a compass. Fascinating. I'll try and get my brother to do a video on him for more of the SOE type stuff. Battle dress jacket. Denison. Everybody goes after Denisons. You do see them worn. So you know, they are part of the kit and they are fantastic for driving in Jeeps and stuff, but you only really see them worn maybe at the beginning of the operations when they've dropped in with it. You quite quickly see them relax and it's shirt, maybe a battle dress. But either type's fine, the half zip or the full zip. You can have knitted cuffs on. You will see pictures of pretty much all the modifications. The SAS were well known for modifying stuff, so almost any type of period correct Denison is fine. This is an early Soldier of Fortune. Once they grub it up, I think they look fine. Braces, you don't often see them wearing braces, but these are originals. They're okay. If anyone's ever worn originals, they're non-elasticated and they are permanently popping off or trying to cut you in half. So what you can do is the Soldier of Fortune ones look the same, but they are elasticated. These aren't too bad. They still seem to rip the really bad leather, so just be aware. But you don't have to have braces. You don't have to. You can just wear a belt. The airborne trousers that I'll get onto next don't have belt hoops, so you do need the belt quite tight to hold it up if your trousers are like that. Next, a 37 pattern belt, but we'll get onto that with the webbing. You quite often see them wearing 2 belts. They've got one maybe to hold their trousers up as a spare, and then they have their webbing belt with their pistol order set on. The trousers, I wear the parachutist trousers with the large map pocket, but again you don't actually see these all that often. They are in the pictures, but you quite often see them wearing 40 pattern standard battle dress trousers, so you don't have to go for the airborne trousers. As well as my belt, I do have the jackknife attached via a lanyard. You see it in pictures. It's also a standard British military thing, is they all seem to have it around a lanyard around their waist and tucked into a pocket. I tuck mine into my field dressing pocket, which does actually have a field dressing in it. After the trousers, gaiters or puttees. So you got the puttees. For the SAS War Diary and the reports of Phantom, it says that they took puttees, but they would have preferred to have took gaiters. So either are fine. If you're going by pictures, which is what I base my impression off, you'll actually not wear either. I turn my trousers up and just let them over the top of the trousers, over the top of the boot, and you see that in so many of the pictures, including the commanding officer of John Tonkin. You so often see them do the same. They just turn the trousers up. They're behind the lines, living in the woods. It's comfort. Tonkin is not going to go around doing kit inspections, making sure everything's polished and you're wearing your gaiters correctly. Everybody is relaxed in these pictures. As I say, this uniform impression is based off of the bull basket pictures, but you do see a lot of crossover with things like Houndsworth. Boots, I use, these are original 43 dated, they were 43 dated ammo boots. I've took the soles off and I have put the commando sole on. These are sort of 50s commando soles. The commando sole didn't change. These are really hard. It took me well over a year to get this pair of boots together by stealing a sole off another pair of boots, and I was very lucky that I was able to save the sole. Ammo boots are fine. They did use them. DMS boots, the post-war with the rubber soles, are also fine. Yes, they look different, and yes, people will probably pick up on it. But you've also got to remember, if you've ever walked down a station platform in ammo boots, you're going to go flying. So I'd highly recommend something with rubber soles, so you've got a little bit of grip. Most of the group have wore DMS boots for years and never had a problem, and as we can slowly change them, we are. You can also get ammo boots, say Soldier of Fortune ammo boots, and you can put the modern Vibram soles on. They're not that far off. They're not as thick, and they're certainly not as tough, but the pattern is almost the same. So you could get ammo boots and put Vibram rubber soles on. As unfortunately, Outerwear, who made the commando soles, are gone. Right, so basic webbing set. 37 pattern holster. I've got mine hung off a compass pouch, which is also a revolver ammo pouch. If you have a revolver in there, you can have the revolver ammo in there. I then have the Browning mag pouch, twin mag pouch for the Browning, because they fit the Colt mags. You see them on all the pictures. We then use a voltmeter pouch as an M1 carbine pouch, because the SAS, although they took the carbine, didn't take the pouches. There's reports of Phantom using Eureka Beacon battery pouches, saying that they are perfect for M1 carbine magazines, but till I get one of them, we're using these. This is something they'd have come across in MT workshops. 37 pattern belt, and then the US M3 fighting knife with an M8 scabbard. Now, you can use the Fairburn Sykes fighting daggers, but you don't see them being used. We know they were issued, but you don't see them being used. You do see the M3 being used, and there's probably a reason for that. And it's this. If you take that with you, that is a very thin blade. It's designed for one thing, it's designed for killing. Now, contrary to popular belief, the SAS weren't just going around cutting every throat they came across. In fact, they'd avoid a fight because they've got a mission to do. Their job isn't to go and attract as much attention as possible by killing everybody with a knife. So the fact is, they're probably not going to have to use that. The M3 fighter knife is much thicker, and one side doesn't have a blade all the way down, so you could use this as a knife. You could use it around camp, you could use it for everything. So it made a lot more sense to take a useful knife. If you try and sharpen a bit of wood or chop something with that, it's not going to work. It's a useless knife, except it's fantastic for killing, useless for everything else. That's the best of both worlds, and that's what you'll see. You'll see in the pictures, especially a bull basket, half the time these people aren't even armed. It's quite hard to find a picture with a gun in it, and it's because they're miles behind the lines, they're hiding from the Germans. The amount of times where they'll be coming back from a raid and they go and hide in some woods, wait out for the day, and then travel again at night. They're not just machine gunning everything, and yet their jeeps are armed with Vickers K guns with a huge rate of fire. They're not going out there attracting attention to themselves. They all had pistols. That's really the one thing that they took, was a pistol. So except the 1911, I quite often carry the 1911 because it's a blank fire, so if we do any reenactments, that's normally the one I'm carrying. So as a driver, I have that, and I normally have James, who's my machine gunner. He's on a Vickers K. But reenactment wise, pistol. I know they took 1911s. It's in the reports that they weren't sufficient. Everybody should have a brain gun or a carbine, so we know the 1911 was there. We also have a report of a Colt revolver, which is what this is. So a Colt revolver is okay, but generally if you're starting out, these are really rare and expensive to get hold of. So I'd go for something like a 1911. There is reports of Browning high powers, but not in any of not in bull baskets certainly. You could use an artillery Luger. We have a picture where there is an captured artillery Luger sticking out of a modified holster, which is quite cool. You could use that. Rifles, M1 carbines. That's the rifle they took. They didn't take the Enfields. They would have had access to them because the Resistance had them. They had access to Brens because the Resistance had them under Manguard. I think I even read somewhere that they were told to just use Manguard sash because he had so many. I mean, he even stopped asking for stens. He said he's got more than enough and he doesn't need any more because they're not very effective. So M1 carbines, you can use the airborne folding stock tape. I have a video on the carbines if you want to go check that out. You do see this as at least one clear picture where there is a guy standing with it and you can clearly see the folding stock. So you can use that. You can use the full stock carbine. There's some fantastic pictures of them holding full stock M1 carbines. There's a great one of some SAS, some US Air Force Evaders on Manguard's Matford. If you're going to carry a bag with you, say you're just walking around for the day, you're not part of a display or a group and you might want to carry a bag with you, musette bags can be used. We know the SAS took them. They didn't take them to bull basket as far as I know, as in I can't find any pictures or reports about them, but we do know that they took the respirator bags, the small type, because there's reports of the MCR1 receivers fitting in them perfectly. And also on the Phantom kit list of what they took to Bull Basket, they mentioned that they have these respirators. So like every unit from frontline forces to special forces, as soon as they get this, first thing to do is lob the mask out and they just use it as a bag. So that's what I would do and that's what I have done. I actually use this as my camera bag at events, as I can hide my camera in plain sight. Little extras you can use. A BEF watch is a good extra. I wear that quite often. It also covers my tattoo, which is quite good. Dog tags. I've got these fairly generic. I've got my great granddad's number on, and these are my other great granddad's private purchase chain. You quite often see them using the longer chain, which these were quite a common private purchase. You'll see a lot of second-hand sets. Keep an eye on eBay. You will see sets of random dog tags with this chain. You don't have to just use the string. In fact, most pictures you see, even just infantry, they seem to get rid of the little bit of string, and these are much more comfortable. I quite like as an extra the Rogue Heroes type sunglasses. These are RAF pilot sunglasses. These are original, and they are fantastic for that Rogue Heroes look. And on sunny days when you're stood out in a field, you're going to need some sunglasses. So as a reenactor, although it's a stretch because there's no evidence of these being taken, as long as they're here are correct, I'd recommend some kind of sunglasses. Maybe not originals because these things aren't UV protected and they're probably going to burn my eyes out. But you can get reproductions and they're a nice in-keeping thing because the SAS weren't walking around in fields during the day. They were active at night and we can't do reenactments at night. So you got to compromise somewhere. So as long as it's in keeping, a lot of this you can change as long as it's in keeping and is feasible. Now for some of the stereotypes and overdone equipment with SAS reenactors. Firstly, although we are guilty of it sometimes, goggles. Every SAS reenactor wears a set of goggles. I have two sets. I have this round fleece lined set, and then I have in original tin the more common dispatch rider type, and every reenactor wears them on their head or around their neck, and yet you rarely see them in pictures. Now the reason I overdo this stereotyping involved is if you've ever driven a Jeep without a screen, especially on modern roads, you're going to go blind in that stuff that flicks up from those bar grip tyres at the front. So in the summer as well with all the insects, goggles really are a must. Again, the sunglasses are fantastic. These are brilliant to drive in. They're almost better than the goggles. Out of the two types of goggles, I'd recommend these ones, although they make you look a little bit bug-eyed. They're much better to drive in, and these are actually tinted, which make them even better. And they fold flat, they're all spring-loaded and go in your pocket. That's one thing that is overdone though, is if you're just portraying a normal trooper and you're not involved with vehicles, we have Jeeps, so we're all driving around quite often, we are a fairly mobile display. If you don't have that, I wouldn't go down the goggles route personally. They're just overdone. There isn't evidence really of, we know they were used, but there isn't evidence of everybody having them. Another one is the modified drop leg holster. So this is a 37 pattern holster on a homemade or quartermaster made rigging. That straps around your leg, which is like an old elf strap, and then these are two utility straps sewn on so that it can drop down off your belt and wrap around your leg. And you will find pictures of SAS troopers in France wearing these. They are always 3rd or 4th French SAS. I'm yet to find one of, even later in the war, of 1 or 2 SAS wearing these. I'd stay away from it. There's just no evidence of it except in French SAS use. I'm sure they were used. I mean, you even see tankers using similar things. I just wouldn't. You also see 2 of the brace extensions being used and just a utility strap to tie one around your leg. That's a little bit better, but again, French use. I'd go as far as to say this is almost exclusively 3rd and 4th SAS. So, especially when you're starting out, I'd just go for a basic pistol or the belt. It's a lot easier, a lot safer. Weapons, everybody wants a machine gun, everyone wants something automatic, and everyone goes to shows loaded for bear with the amount of weapons that they carry. You just don't see evidence of it. Less is definitely more. These guys were operating behind the lines, not attracting attention to themselves as much as they could. So don't go carrying loads of stuff around. The burr guns, which I've got hidden behind all my kit, we have tons of burr guns. They were used, they were there, they're in reports. Tonkin says they're too cumbersome and that the haversack is much better. Always see the burr guns attached to jeeps or just sat around in camp. Another stereotype is the sand beret. We have covered it a little bit, but they just didn't wear it as often. In France, the red beret was mandatory under the new command of airborne forces. They were now SAS, were now under them. The maroon is much safer if you're portraying missions in France for June, July and into August. So unless you're portraying a very specific action or a very specific person, I'd just stay away from the sand. Just not quite authentic. For most of the cases, this isn't a whole thing. If you can prove it for the portrayal, this is the whole point, is research your portrayal. That's the best advice, is research it. The other one I don't have here is a windproof smock. They are by far the most overdone SAS thing. Even for late war, I struggle to find photos of people using the windproof smock. They were used into Germany. They're a bit like a Denison, but slightly different camouflage and a different designer jacket. I've got none of the use in France. Maybe some under French, but even French 3rd and 4th SAS, my research has not shown me any windproof smocks. Lots of battle dress, even the Denisons, even in Bull Basket, everybody would have had a Denison. We know they were there, they're in photographs. We know they were there because Tonkin used his to hide against a green camouflage background with his face against the pale rock. They're like the only times you hear of them. It's summer, you don't want to be wearing a smock all the time, so go for comfort. Another overdone thing with reenacting is, maybe not overdone, but over whinged about, is the correct shade of battle dress. This jacket is made from 49 pattern material, as best I can gather. It's the closest to real battle dress. I've got original battle dresses and material from it. It's identical to most of them, but I mean, everyone says your battle dress is the wrong shade. It's the most common thing I see on the Reenactor starting out pages. Go and look at pictures, original pictures. There's some great ones of Bull Basket. If the battle dress is the wrong colour, can someone tell these guys? Because the originals, their battle dresses are all over the shade spectrum. So, like you'll see with my battle dress, they don't match. Battle dress came in all sorts of colours. It's like military paint for jeeps when it goes olive drab. Even in the American books of what olive drab should be, it says it ranges from neon green to black. This is being churned out for the war. It's not a correct shade or not. Another thing that's overdone is Blanco. The correct Blanco shade for the era of fighting in France in June, July and August would be KG3, which is late war like green. And that is correct. However, again, maybe the guys in Bull Basket got it wrong as well, because if you look at their webbing sets, they're all over the place. Some of it's unblanco, some of it's dark, some of it's lighter than the other bits. None of it matches. None. So we've tried to reflect that. Some of this is just old Blanco, some of it's unblancoed but dirty, some of it's KG3. But the point is, it's not a parade ground, and when you look at the pictures, their stuff just doesn't match, and I don't think they'd have been bothered on the night before their drop of making sure that their webbing was blancoed the correct shade. Again, if you're doing a portrayal in the UK, as in you're portraying someone before their operations in France, maybe you want to be a little bit more regimented, and their Blanco would have probably been better, and their battle dress would have been smart, and they'd probably been wearing puttees and gaiters. If you're doing an overseas impression in France after their drop, I'd make it comfortable, borderline scruffy. Is a good look for pretty much all of this. Overall, this, you don't have to listen to anything I say. I'm just a weirdo sat in my garden doing this video. But basic research, and cut the kit down to just basics, because in all the pictures, which I'll have put in this video already and I'll put some more at the end, it's basics. Now, as a disclaimer, I'm not saying anyone that wears windproof smocks or wears the sand is wrong. If that's correct for the mission you're portraying, then brilliant. And people did do that. But if everyone's starting out, just start out as a regular trooper, no rank, basic equipment, just carry a pistol, basic webbing. It's also fantastic when you're walking around, you haven't got all the kit to carry, it's a lot more comfortable. Ball basket, you could wear daps instead of boots. The British military plimsolls, you'll see pictures of them wandering around camp in their shorts, vest and some daps. Like I say, research. So I think that's about it. Hopefully this was informative. Hopefully I've covered everything. If there's any questions, just ask. Go onto Facebook and find the Ball Basket World War II Living History group page. We've got plenty on there, and you're always welcome to send me a message. And hopefully see you at an event. Hopefully this helps you with your portrayal this year, and hopefully see you at an event soon.